Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Mike Dokter, and I'm the head coach of the House High School women's basketball team, playing under the Michigan Basketball Academy umbrella. And we are going to continue our journey through Pound the Stone by Joshua Medcalf, book number 2. And I'm excited about it. We're getting towards the end here. I may even just record the rest of the videos right now because we're not that far away, quite honestly. So they'll be split up. But if you're joining us for the first time, the playlist, watch through the whole book. You're welcome to. If you like what you see, you like what you're hearing, go ahead and watch Chop Wood Carry Water. That's the first book in the series. This is the follow-up to that book. And next year, we are going to do a different one. I haven't decided yet if we're going to stick with Josh Medcalf or do something a little bit different. So right now, today, we're going to read chapter 58 and 59. Sweep the Sheds. Sweep the Sheds, chapter 58. By the time basketball season began, Jason was in the best shape of his life. Months of pounding the stone, both alone over the summer and together with his team once school started, had paid off. He had come a long way from the guy who hated practice just a few years before. After his take the mask off meeting with the other seniors, the team was even more in sync than ever. Everyone showed up each morning at 6 a.m. to put in their hour and a half of conditioning and training, and each night after practice, Jason stayed late to keep shooting. And even though he still didn't love each day, he ran through TD's footwork and fundamental drills, pushing himself harder and harder each day. The season had an uninspiring start, going 2-3 in their first few games. Jason had to admit that he was disappointed, but he didn't let it show. Instead, he kept repeating both to himself and to the guys in the locker room, relax, trust the process, focus on what we control, the meaning we give to the experience, and what we do after it. We just have to keep pounding the stone. His words calmed everyone down and proved to be prophetic. The next game was a breakout game for Jason. He was unstoppable, going 12 for 14 from inside the paint and draining a pair of threes on top of that. He was perfect from the free throw line, finishing with 38 points on top of 10 assists and 13 boards, a triple-double, the holy grail in basketball. On the last day of the game, he even unleashed his now signature ankle-breaking split-the-D to dunk move, sending the crowd to their feet with wild applause. Jason had never been more excited after a game. After the past few years of pounding the stone in the dark, he was finally feeling like all of his sacrifices and persistence was paying off on the court. Afterward, he encouraged the other guys, "This is only the beginning. Trust me." Again, those words became true as the team went on a blazing hot run of 12 more wins. Each time, it seemed like he couldn't score anymore, and they would break that record the next game. Jason led the team in scoring and assists, and he couldn't deny that it felt great to be recognized for it, too. Out of anyone on the team, he had put in the most time pounding the stone, and it made sense that he would be much further ahead of everyone else. Success is a double-edged sword, though. For the first time in a long time, as the excitement surrounding the season grew and there were more demands on Jason's time, he began to practice less. Some of the best schools in the country had started calling and texting him every day, and people were asking for his time. It started with a half hour of extra sleep here and there as Jason showed up later and later for their morning practices. He knew he was letting things slip, but he knew it wouldn't matter. The Raiders were unstoppable. He was unstoppable, but not for long. Eventually, they lost a game, then one more. Finally, in the most confusing night of his entire history on the court, they tanked what would have been the easiest win of their season, dropping a huge 43-77 L to last place Ellsworth, one of the few teams they had beat last year. Jason was stunned. That night, it was like playing on a completely different team. Their timing was off, everyone was blaming each other, and Jason personally felt like his mind was going to disconnect from his body. He was completely in his head the whole game, overthinking everything. It was the wrong type of out-of-body experience. He couldn't hit any of the shots he usually did. He felt like he had 2 left feet for most of the game. He didn't know what exactly, but something was very wrong. He stayed in the locker room until well after everyone else had gone home. If he were honest, he simply didn't want to take ownership of his own shortcomings and face the embarrassment of speaking to the reporters who had been he had been bragging to for almost 2 months now. Jason heard the door of the locker room open and was surprised to see Russ walk in. The older man simply nodded his greeting and sat down next to Jason. "You know, you got a very concerned girlfriend out there asking about you. Thought you might have fallen in the toilet and drowned," Russ smiled. Jason shook his head. Feels like I did. What happened out there tonight? Jason hesitated. He knew exactly what had happened. It wasn't tonight, actually. It's something that's happened over the past few weeks. What was that? I stopped putting in the work that got us here, and the team followed suit. Well, why? We just got used to winning. It didn't feel like we needed to. Russ grinned. Well, you know how I feel about living by principles instead of feelings. Now you know why. Jason nodded, taking that in. Suddenly, Russ shifted, his eyes lighting up. Jason, can you name the sports franchise with the highest winning percentage in human history? Jason puzzled. The Yankees? Nope. In fact, it's not an American team. Maybe the Brazilian soccer national team? They're very dominant, but that's not the answer. Russ shook his head. The answer is the All Blacks, New Zealand's national rugby team. Over the course of recorded competition, they have won 83% of their games. Jason's mouth dropped open. Shut up, that's insane. Yeah, it's definitely pretty astonishing. But what's more astonishing is the fact that despite this, they have a legendary reputation for being by far the most genuinely humble team in sports. The craziest thing is that after any match, even a World Cup final, you will find the best players sweeping the locker room and cleaning up after everyone. They have a radically different philosophy than many of our Western teams, and it doesn't just show up with a clean locker room. Their heart posture ends up showing itself on the scoreboard as well. When you ask them why they've been so successful, one of the first things they will point to is the culture of sweep the sheds. Russ looked around the locker room. So what do you say we stop sulking and start cleaning this place up? All right. When you're winning, it can be very easy to lose sight of the fact of all of the things that got you there. It's happened to me many, many times. You get lazy. You get complacent. You think that all of the stuff that you have done to that point is just going to be able to stay consistent and persistent. And the reality is that it isn't. And you need to stay humble in the midst of those scenarios, because the second you get a big head about you, the second you think that, oh, well, I can just show up and this will work. It's not the way that life works. It's not the way that basketball works. It's not the way that sports works. And it's not the way that life works. Anytime you're in a situation where you finally get in that groove, the biggest thing that you can do to help yourself is to continue to stay in that groove and do the little things that got you there in the first place. Keep it there. Keep working hard. Keep doing the little things. Keep getting up a little bit earlier. Keep going to bed on time. Get your sleep. Get your rest. Do your studying. Call your family. Tell them you love them. All the little things that got you there, that made you feel so accomplished and so good about things, continue to do those things. If you continue to do those things, you will continue to have the best possible opportunity to stay and sustain success. All right, chapter 59. Who do you want to be? Jason took those words to heart and threw himself back into practicing harder than ever. He was determined to embody the heart posture of the sweep the sheds, as well as possible to never let winning derail him from pounding the stone ever again. The determination paid off as he and the team got back into their groove again and began their final rhythm once more. They squeezed out a win, and then another. Things began to feel more normal as they kept winning. But while the practice was paying off on the court, it affected other parts of Jason's life in ways that weren't as positive. He was consistently tired, and he found it difficult to focus in class sometimes. He found it more and more difficult to play present off the court, and even spaced out while he was with Kaya, which had never happened before. It didn't help that he was starting to think seriously about his after high school plans. Jason felt the pressure to make the right decision. One night as he was hanging out with Kaya, it hit a breaking point. Jason, are you even listening to me? Jason snapped out of his thoughts, realizing Kaya had stopped speaking about 20 seconds ago. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just really stressed. I got a lot on my mind. You were talking about something at your work? Yes, I had a breakthrough with Carissa, the girl with dyslexia I've been working with. Oh, well, that's good, right? Yes, Jason, that's good, Kaya's eyes flashed. So what's on your mind that's so much more important? Jason knew she was under a lot of pressure as well, but he couldn't help firing back. Well, we have this year's biggest stretch of games coming up, and there are rumors that even a few NBA scouts will be there. So yeah, it's a lot to think about, but sure, let's talk about your tutoring instead. Excuse me? I'm just saying, it's not like that's going to pay off the way basketball will. Jason regretted it the moment it came out of his mouth, but there was no taking it back. Instead, he just had to watch it land on Kaya's beautiful face as the words pierced her heart like an arrow. Her face crinkled in pain and emotion rose in her eyes. Wow, was all she could say. Jason started to stammer out an apology, but she cut him off. No, you've said exactly what you mean. I'm glad I know what your priorities are now. She gathered her things and walked out, leaving Jason stunned and silent. He thought about chasing after her, but shrugged it off. He was angry at her response, though he couldn't say why. She'll cool off, he thought. But the next week proved him wrong. Kaya didn't respond to any of his DMs on social media. He and the team won their next game, but not by much. Jason knew why. His head was messed up. He felt terrible about what he'd said to Kaya, and all of his apologies were going nowhere. Finally, he didn't know where else to turn, so he called Russ. As they sat at their usual booth at the diner, Russ listened silently, allowing Jason to vent. I told her I was sorry too, like a million times. I just wish she got it. Well, got what? Well, the pressure I'm under. I feel like I've been carrying the team on my back this whole season. I've got coaches calling and texting me all day, and we're entering the hardest part of our season. Russ paused. Jason, do you still think this is all about basketball? Jason paused, confused, as Russ went on. Face the facts, son. You've deeply hurt somebody you truly care about, all because you're focused on what? Basketball? A scholarship? Pro ball? That's outcome talking, not the process. You still think that by winning a championship or making it to the NBA, you're going to be worth more as a person. And that's just not true. It's not about the game, Jason. It never has been about the game. It's about the person you become through it. That's why the process matters so much more than the outcome. I once had one of the most respected people in coaching tell me that he wants to see a kid play poorly when he's watching. You know why? Because he's seen how he handles adversity. Because seeing how he handles adversity will tell him a lot more about how the kid will handle the next level more than anything else. It's easy to give your best, treat people well, and have unconditional gratitude and have a great attitude when everything is going the way you want. But how will you respond when everything hits the fan? In sports, business, and life, it is a guarantee that you are going to have a lot of adversity. That's why it's not about the game. The game is just another place to experience adversity and refine your character. Your character is all that matters. If you miss that, you miss everything. I knew a guy in high school named Brandon. Brandon was a star athlete, maybe even better than you. His size and talent were really something special. He was one of those guys who only came along once in a generation, and he had been scouted by the NBA as a sophomore. Everybody knew this guy had an incredible future ahead of him in sports. But unfortunately, Brandon's character didn't match his abilities. To put it plainly, he was completely selfish. All ego and no character. He thought it was funny to make fun of special needs students as he passed them by in the halls, mocking them and their teachers, even though many of them were fans of his. People knew this about him, but they let it slide because of his athletic talent. However, the summer before his senior year, Brandon passed out at the wheel while driving home from a movie after drinking and smoking some weed. His car went off the road and flipped 8 times. He barely survived, but would live forever as a quadriplegic who could never move anything but his eyes or his mouth again. He couldn't eat, bathe, or use the restroom without the help of another person. And so he spent his senior year, that same year that everyone expected him to be fending off offers from various NBA teams, in a wheelchair instead of in a spotlight. And instead of being surrounded by his teammates and beautiful girls, he spent the year with a special needs room, surrounded by the kids who, just a few months before, he had loved to make fun of. Jason was stunned. Russ looked at him with a deep empathy and compassion. Jason, this is why the process matters so much more than the outcome. All the championships in the world are worthless if you can't love people and live with ownership, authentic vulnerability, and integrity. One of my favorite quotes in the world is, "What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul?" So the next time you find yourself caring more about the world than your soul, think about Brandon and remember the true value of character. All right, you heard me get choked up a couple times there. And all that stuff is so real. And it's important to remember that, again, you can't judge your value and what's important based on outcomes. It's not about the outcomes. It's just not. It will ruin you. And unfortunately, our culture and our business has been more focused on that and raising people to care more about that than actually caring about the real stuff that matters, which is who you become in the midst of the process. And I would just, again, encourage you to focus on what it means to fall in love with the process of becoming better and choose who you're going to be, win or lose. Pound the stone, win or lose. Pound the stone when things are good and when things are bad. Thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing you next time. We are getting so close, less than 20, just over 20 pages to go. And it's exciting. Actually, less than 20 pages. So we'll see you soon. Bye now.